This is about how applying Strunk White boosted my career. In 1979, Macmillan published third edition of The Elements of Style. This week I checked around and I can't find a copy. I've given away at least 36 copies since 1979, and it's likely I gave away my last physical copy, though I checked my Kindle version to share this. I've got both an encouraging and discouraging Strunk White story. This is the encouraging. Applying Strunk White to my work writing paid for 2 full years of my college. I'll explain in the course of this. When I was a probationary firefighter, I was too low on the totem pole to write after action reports, but I did have to learn how to write them. That is, I had to learn how my department wanted me to write them. Every big institution, there's 3 ways to do it: the right way, the wrong way, and our way, and you're going to do it our way. I did what I was told. So when I was trusted with report writing, I wrote exactly as my fire department superiors wanted. Sometimes I was embarrassed by my writing, but I wrote the way they wanted. Squad 7 responded to report of man having chest pain. I didn't respond. Firefighter Beatty didn't respond. Squad 7 responded. That's what they demanded, so that's what I gave them. Now, when I, got over my probationary period and started submitting reports, at first the senior firefighter reviewed my report. If he tore it up and gave it back to me, then I had to do it again. If he approved, he passed it on to the lieutenant, and if the lieutenant approved, he passed it on to the captain, and so forth up the chain of command to the fire chief. One day I asked the fire chief if he actually read all the reports. Damn right, he said. If one of these fucking reports makes the news, I don't want it to say anything. Understand, Beatty, your reports are not to say anything. Don't try your Phi Beta Kappa shit on me. Yes, sir. Now, I emphasize again, this is the encouraging Strunk White story. And I was never in Phi Beta Kappa. But somehow when I started on the fire department, that was the rumor, and fire department rumors never die, nor can they be killed. They are immortal. So I was Phi Beta Kappa the entire time I was on the Sedgwick County Fire Department. Now, I was active in Mensa, the American Mensa, Kansas chapter of the American Mensa IIQ Society. And I've always surmised that's where the Phi Beta Kappa rumor came from. Firefighters transposing Mensa for Phi Beta Kappa. Now, there were, when I was there, 3 colors of paper for 3 different sheets of paper that you had to write your reports on. Now, the whole idea was to reduce the amount of writing done. Most of the report consisted of filling in blanks with names, times, resources, locations. The actual report area in which firefighters and officers wrote prose was shrinking. In that square, the fire chief did not want anything written that a insurance company lawyer or any news outlet, the enemy, could turn into something negative about the Sedgwick County Fire Department. Now, over the decades that he had rose to become chief, Gary L. Nichols had led the way from the paperwork, once being mostly 3 blank pages with lots of room to write narrative, to becoming 3 mostly fill-in-the-blank sections with a paragraph-sized square for a handwritten narrative that better not say anything. Chief Nichols was about writing like my old football coach was about the forward pass. Only three things can happen when you throw a forward pass, and two of them are bad: interception and completion. Chief thought that no notice by anyone of the written report section was best. Next best was praiseworthy notice, but he didn't like that because it often led to more work and time away from real work. And the worst was any negative notice. So I began my writing career in the Sedgwick County Fire Department by writing like Winston Smith in 1984. I love Big Brother. I am all for doublethink. Ignorance is strength. Otherwise, I'm saying little. Now, if you look at the report and you say, well, I didn't write much there, Squad 7 reported to a man having chest pain. The rest of the information, the address, where the call came in, etc., those are in the fill in the blank items. The information's in the report, man. You hard of reading? So here is Strunk White Contents, 4th edition. 4 writers contribute. William Strunk, PhD. He wrote the main body work. His first edition, he wrote solo, and it's now in the public domain. He was professor of English at Cornell. That's a East Coast university. And he was E.B. White's professor for the course titled English 8. E.B. White received the Pulitzer Prize. He became, 38 years later, Strunk's co-author. He was a New Yorker columnist and wrote 3 well-received children's books: Stuart Little, Charlotte's Web, and Trumpet of the Swan. Roger Angell, I don't know how it's pronounced, Angell. He was White's stepson. He wrote in the book about his stepfather. And Charles Osgood. So, forward by Roger, introduction by White, Chapter 1, Elementary Rules of Usage, Chapter 2, Elementary Principles of Composition. This is the most important part of the book. Read that part. Start with, I'll get into that. Chapter 3, A Few Matters of Form. Chapter 4 has 121 entries. Words and expressions commonly misused. They dislike, etc., which I put in my writing frequently, the tied-ass bastards. White has, on his own, added an approach to style with 21 entries, and then the afterword by Charles Osgood, and the glossary has 63 entries. Now, back in 79, I just grabbed the book, read it straight through, and started rereading it. Back then, I was working full-time on EMS, I was working part-time on EMS, full-time in the emergency room, and going to school part-time. Here's one of my letters of commendation. Most guys and gals on the fire department, and there weren't any gals on the fire department back then, but there were on EMS. And everyone received, we all did field saves. So everybody had a whole drawer full of these letters. When I worked in the emergency room, there was so often nobody got a commendation. I was just, doing CPR and code blue resuscitation. That was just daily work. Now, it was a little bit later when I was transferred over, I was on the Sedgwick County Fire Department when I started subversive writing. So I'm going to use Strunk White in my narrative report. Now, what I did was the final rule of chapter 2, place the emphatic words of a sentence at the end. Now, to write that, it required me to take time to make notes on a separate piece of paper and think. That took more time to write than anything else. And in my first effort, I remember that basically all three, the senior firefighter, the lieutenant, and the captain, want to know what's taking so fucking long to write the report. So they were all in bed by the time I finished the report. I left it on the officer's desk and went to bed. But in the morning, I was woke by a polite question. What's this? It's my report. You want your ass kicked? What's this? I thought the report would be best served by a few more words. You better be right, asswipe. Sometimes fate intervenes favorably. Though my intention was to use Strunk White, it turns out in this instance that how I characterized the incident in my narrative saved the insurance company in Sedgwick County from a payout. The insurance company and the elected commissioners in charge of the fire department were pleased, and that pleased the chief. Don't make a habit of it, but sometimes it's okay to use that Phi Beta Kappa shit, Chief Nichols told me. So I continued working my way through Strunk White. I mean, I would use just one thing at a time, I would change. So I started with placing the emphatic words of the sentence at the end, moved to omit needless words, but statements in positive form, etc. You should read Strunk White. It's not a very long book. Did you see the movie Shawshank Redemption? That's fiction, but my story is nonfiction. Just as guards and others started coming to the fictional Andy Dufresne for tax advice in the real world, higher ups started coming to me for advice on, or for just outright writing, various reports of various lengths to various authorities. Sometimes I also wrote remarks or entire speeches. And just as the warden eventually came to Andy, Chief Nichols came to me for help. And you know what happened? I got rewarded. I received the coveted firefighter scholarship. It paid for everything. Books, tuition, and extra money in my pocket. It was a great scholarship. I received it for more than 1 year. Here's photocopy of the letter I received. See, that's to checkmark firefighter Beatty, Gary L. Nichols, fire chief. And it was to the Wichita State University, WSU contact for the scholarship, William O. Long Scholarship. It's a pleasure for me to recommend to you, Firefighter Beatty, blah, blah. I was, at that time, I had been elected by the Sedgwick County, my brother firefighters, to the as Secretary Treasurer of the Relief and Welfare Association. I was active in sports. I was a CPR instructor. I was an American Heart Association CPR instructor. There was an American Red Cross CPR instructor with a similar name. We got confused all the time. People would call me saying I hadn't turned in my paperwork, and they weren't in my class. They were in the other guy's class. So anyway, I get the mentioned I was active in sports. I was quarterback of our fire department team. Was in the annual parade. Got various attaboy, and eventually I got my degree. This was the first one from WSU, where I was getting a scholarship. Associate of Arts with major in natural sciences and mathematics for Robert M. Betty Jr. And was lucky to work with a lot of great guys. Captains Pete, Buck, and Mother, Senior Firefighter Archibald. And here I'm with firefighters Hamilton and Kavanaugh. So, a lot of my career success traces back in key part to Strunk White. And I think you'd do well to start applying it as I did, if you're not already doing this, by placing the emphatic words of a sentence at the end.